Tonight, police swoop on 3 men in Whyalla, charging them with firearms offences over this handmade gun. And authorities on high alert as parts of the state swelter through 40-degree heat.
This is Southern Cross News with Fraser Goldsworthy.
Good evening. Police have arrested and charged 3 men after a homemade gun was found on a property in Whyalla. The arrest involved the National Anti-Gang Squad and SA Police as agencies clamp down on outlaw motorcycle gang activity. John Hunt has more.
A national task force focusing on gang and firearms offences visited Whyalla yesterday, arresting 3 local men. Police seized prescription medication, alleged stolen electrical goods, a quantity of cash and a small firearm weapon. The home on Havelberg Street was raided at around 9:30 yesterday morning. Among the items discovered was this .22 caliber handgun, made out of metal components and held together by a screw. While tiny, police say it had the potential to do damage to both the victim and the gun holder.
Homemade manufactured weapons are extremely dangerous, not just if they work, but if they don't. It's quite possible that if that had been fired, it could have blown up in the person's hands.
The gun's been sent to Adelaide for testing as officers determine if it was manufactured locally.
It quite possibly wasn't, but the fact it's coming into the hands of people in Whyalla is certainly of concern to us.
Whyalla police are concentrating their effort on these crimes.
Public safety is number one, but also we find these offences are often used to facilitate other offences.
A 19-year-old man and an 18-year-old man were charged with firearm and prescription medication offences, as well as breaching bail. Another 19-year-old man was also charged with firearms offences. They'll appear in the Whyalla Magistrates Court at a later date.
Total fire bans were put in place across South Australia today as the state sweltered through hazardous fire conditions. While a change is on the way, the CFS remains on alert, especially in pastoral districts where the threat of disaster is high.
Heat, wind and lightning, they're the ideal conditions for a catastrophic day.
It's a bit like the saying perfect storm.
Sweltering temperatures across the state forced the CFS to enact extreme fire bans today. Port Augusta hit 43 degrees, while Whyalla topped at 42.
Some possibility of some lightning through later on, and that always throws another complication into it, where we have lightning hitting the ground and starting grass fires or scrub fires.
Crews were forced to act quickly when a grass fire broke out in Cal yesterday.
Everything up there is ready to burn, it just needs the right conditions and the right ignition and it'll go.
Farmers today agreed to halt production to avoid further disaster.
Some good news is on the way though. The CFS is expecting a change to roll through tomorrow and remain here until early next week.
But the threat isn't over.
It's looking it's going to be milder weather and then it's going to start to warm up.
Jason Kemp, Southern Cross News.
A fire has destroyed a kitchen and a lounge room in a home at Port Augusta. Emergency crews were called to the property on Hodge Street at 8:30 this morning. One man was taken to hospital for smoke inhalation while trying to put out the fire.
We advocate that people have a meeting point, and once they've arrived at that meeting point, they do not go back into the house because it could be detrimental to their health.
Police aren't treating the blaze as suspicious. The damage bill's being put at $90,000. 50 pregnant ewes have been stolen from a property at Louth Bay, north of Port Lincoln. The sheep used for meat and wool were taken from a farm sometime between July 21st and last week. Investigators say there are no visible signs of the theft, but do believe the sheep were stolen. The ewes can be identified with a unique ewe tag attached to their ears. Parents across Port Pirie are being reminded to keep a close eye on their children after a number of illegally discarded used needles were found across town. Council has issued an urgent public safety warning after an incident last week.
They're often hard to spot, but beneath the grass, discarded needles can pack a deadly punch. Port Pirie Regional Council is urging young families to be vigilant when exploring public areas. It follows reports of a young boy who picked up a used needle at the Senate Road Sporting Complex last Friday night.
Recently there has been a report to council from a member of the public about a needle that they found in a public place.
Officers regularly inspect public places for needles. This year alone, councils collected more than 150 used needles from around the region.
parks and gardens, ovals. It's usually in more obscure, tucked away places where people can have some privacy.
Council's now calling for more education about the dangers associated with illegally disposed needles and needle stick injuries. If a needle is found in a public space, even if it's capped and appears not to be used, do not touch it, report it immediately to Council.
It's just raised the issue that we don't actually teach our kids about how to be safe and what to do if they do find a disposed of needle.
Rachel Nell, Southern Cross News.
After the break, the Army swoops on the Westlands shopping centre in Whyalla. We'll tell you why next. Police are on the hunt for heartless thieves who took a shade cloth from the new Port Pirie Sports Precinct. Councils say the thieves removed the Aussie Rules football section of the cloth on Memorial Drive that depicts the best of the region's sporting history.
Things are here for the benefit of all the community, and it's clearly disrespectful in relation to the theft. This is not the first one, I understand. It's the second time that there's been theft of the shade cloth.
Anyone with information is asked to contact police. Farmers across the mid-north are being urged to be vigilant of stock disease. Primary Industries says recent weather events have created the perfect breeding ground for illness.
Creating the perfect environment for disease in animals, putting farms across the region out of pocket.
Problems mainly for sheep producers. We obviously get increase in incidence of flies and fly strike.
Fly strike, it costs Australian industry over $300 million per year.
With fly strike comes other potentially fatal diseases and toxic crops.
Associated with that, we get pink eye problems, we get obvious growth of summer weeds, lots of which are toxic. We get lupinosis on lupin stubbles immediately after rain falls.
And it's that lupinosis which is killing sheep across the region.
A high proportion of deaths in a very short period of time. Again, our lupin growing areas are concentrated in the sort of lower to mid-north York and Eyre Peninsula.
But if the lupin stubble and the seed gets wet due to rain or humid conditions, there's a toxin that can grow on the plants, and then we've lost younger sheep or hoggets due to that toxin.
Thankfully, many of these nasty diseases are preventable. Farmers are being encouraged to vaccinate their animals, ensure equipment is clean and monitor for any signs of ill health. Rachel Nell, Southern Cross News.
While the second consultation phase is well underway for a proposed radioactive waste facility in the state's north, the Nick Xenophon team says there's too many unanswered questions. The party is pushing for a Senate inquiry into why the Kimber and Hawker sites were selected in the first place.
Not enough transparency, not enough community support. They're the concerns Nick Xenophon and Senator Rex Patrick have for a radioactive waste dump proposed for either Kimber or Hawker.
This is a big decision. The community is clearly split on this issue, and at the very least we need to have a process that is fair, that is transparent, that is not biased in any way.
They're pushing for a Senate inquiry to answer the questions why the sites were chosen and what's being used to measure broad community support.
I can't understand why the federal government, with all its resources, has only come up with these two sites, given the millions of square kilometres in this country.
The head of resources from the Department of Industry and Innovation says he's well aware of the proposed inquiry.
Senator Patrick has indicated his interest in that, and of course that's a matter for the Senate. As the government official, I'm not going to comment on what the Senate may choose to do.
Meanwhile, at one of the proposed sites in Kimber, the government has set up a 16-person committee to represent the community's views as a part of the community consultation process.
We comprise people who we understand support the facility and those that don't.
The decision on whether an inquiry will go ahead is expected in February. Amelia Simpson, Southern Cross News.
The Army has wrapped up its training exercises in the region by staging a mock situation at the Westlands shopping centre in Whyalla. Students from Duntru Military College were put through their paces in a scenario they could soon be facing while protecting our nation.
Insurgents take control of Westland Shopping Centre, while budding officers look to retake the building. While the drama may seem real, it's all in the name of training during Operation Benburt, held in Whyalla last month.
What we call stability operations. So that's like peacekeeping, rebuilding a war-torn country, distributing humanitarian aid and so on.
Officers spent a month between Whyalla and Kultana undertaking various tasks in small groups. Their assault on Wednesday saw all troops band together to remove a simulated enemy force that formed a larger group inside the centre.
That forced the cadets to organise into a larger formation than they'd previously trained in, and then have to take the insurgents head on.
It's the second year in a row Duntroon has used Whyalla for their final officers training. The Army has given locals an A+ on their report cards, saying they were helpful in giving the cadets the best training experience.
Private residences got involved in the activity. Businesses allowed us to operate in their places of work.
The cadets graduated in Canberra last night. John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
Still to come tonight, our look back at the year that was for Broken Hill. That's next. Welcome back. Time to take a look at how things are shaping up when we head to the Bowser as we head towards Christmas. Here's Patrick with Fuel Watch.
Despite a little bit of green on the boards, we are still paying plenty to fill up our cars with Christmas fast approaching. Let's take a look at unleaded. Port Lincoln is one of the rare ones to see a drop in its price, and the same goes for Port Augusta. Whyalla has managed to break even for the week, but for the rest of us, we're seeing red. Port Pirie has jumped by 3 cents, Kadina is up by 2. Both towns are now on $1.36. Here in the Silver City, we've cracked the $1.40 barrier, but Adelaide is worst off. A 17-cent spike has it resting on $1.48. Looking at diesel, and we see Port Lincoln is the worst performer, climbing by 4 cents to sit on $1.39. Whyalla is breaking even and joins Port Augusta, Port Pirie and Kadina, all on $1.33. More bad news for Broken Hill as we also tick up into $1.40 territory for diesel, and Adelaide has seen a slight rise but is still holding strong at around $1.30. So make sure you're on the lookout for the best price before filling up your car, and remember that these prices are the regional averages and they do not reflect any one particular outlet. And if you do find a spot that does sell it for cheaper, let us know on our Facebook page.
The Clare Valley has contributed to a record-breaking number of international visitors for South Australia. Over the past year, over 4,000 people travelling from overseas have paid the famous wine region a visit. Statewide, more than 66,000 people from the UK filled the streets, while tourists from China were at an all-time high. As a result, $1.1 billion has been pumped into the state's economy. That's good news. Well, let's continue our look back at the year that was for our region. Tonight we focus on Broken Hill. 2017 has been a prosperous year for the Silver City, with tourism and a string of major projects rejuvenating the region. Patrick Reinke caught up with Mayor Daria Turley.
Daria Turley, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
So Daria, looking back on 2017, a few major events, of course, what with the Murray River Pipeline being announced, but also those water theft allegations being raised. But there are also some positives as well in that year. So overall, how do you think Broken Hill has gone in 2017?
It's been a very good year for Broken Hill. The town itself has had a facelift following the big storms of 2016. I think that every second house has had a new roof. But if you look at the employment, how we've improved our employment in Broken Hill. For City Council, we've done a lot of new projects around the town. We've had the big clean-up that caused a lot of interest in the competition. But we've also looked at how we deliver services better for our community. Our focus for this council is better service delivery for all our ratepayers in our communities.
And Broken Hill continues to be a pretty major tourist destination in the far west and also in New South Wales as a whole. As Mayor, have you seen an increase in visitors this year?
When you look at the new emerging festivals for Broken Hill, people come here anyway to see the heritage of the city. They come here to visit Silverton and surrounding areas. We're the base for the region. But then we've got the new festivals coming through. The Broken Hill Festival, their numbers really surprised everybody. It's in its third year. We've had the Perfect Light Solar Film Festival. This is an inaugural festival, and certainly, this is going to be one of the ones to watch. This will be like the Broken Hill Festival, an opportunity for an international festival. Great times for Broken Hill, good times for tourism, and it's a good focus for council to rethink what we do in 2018.
Do you think Broken Hill has sort of turned over a new leaf, so to speak, what with the Silverton Wind Farm, the Country University Centre being launched next year, and also the North Mine reopening?
It has turned over a new leaf, and for the first time in many years we're seeing apprenticeships advertised. And when you see that, you know that jobs are growing. You know that there's confidence in our economy. You know that businesses are really looking at their future. So it's turned over a new leaf. It's a good time for Broken Hill. We see that the housing rates have changed as well. We know that it's very rare or very hard to get rentals because people are coming into Broken Hill for employment. It's a big shift from 5 years ago. And look, the community are loving it. We see the opportunities for everyone. Someone said to me the other day that if you want to work, there's a job in Broken Hill.
And looking ahead for 2018 and beyond, what does it hold for Broken Hill?
Well, it's exciting times. Council itself is looking at how we deliver services. We're doing a major review, so each service will be more accessible. There's a lot of red tape when our community are trying to be accessed. When people come in and want to access council, too much red tape, sometimes there's 20 spots before they can actually get the job done. We're addressing that. We want to cut that down. We want to be the accessible council, and that's what we're looking at, is how Broken Hill will shine in 2018. But with the job creation that's happening, that's the one that I'm very excited about. We don't know what new business will be coming to Broken Hill, but we know our council's ready for it and we'll be working with them.
Daria Turley, thanks for chatting with Southern Cross News. Have yourself a Merry Christmas, and I think we'll see you in the new year.
Oh, Merry Christmas to you and all your viewers in Broken Hill and Spencer Gulf, and I look forward to 2018.
Stay with us. After the break, Abby will have all the weather, and relief is finally on the way, Abby.
Yes, Fraser will be cooling down tomorrow. I'll have all the details next. Welcome back. Well, the mercury continued to soar today. It hit a scorching 43 degrees in Port Augusta, 42 in Whyalla and Broken Hill, 40 degrees in Port Pirie, and a little cooler in Port Lincoln, 30 the top there. On the satellite, high cloud over western and southern parts of South Australia is due to a low pressure trough further east and is bringing virtually no rain. On our waters tomorrow, southerly winds between 20 to 25 knots, seas up to 1.5 metres. And it's going to be much cooler tomorrow with a change sweeping across overnight, heading for 28 in Port Augusta, cloudy and 25 in Whyalla, a cool 22 in Port Lincoln, 26 in Broken Hill, 27 for Port Pirie and 25 in Kadina. Looking ahead, the mild weather will last only for a little while, so make the most of it while you can. Port Lincoln will climb back into the 30s on Sunday, warming up in Cleve, 36 for Sunday there, and the same for Woodner, heading for a top of 40 degrees to end the week. Further up the Gulf, Whyalla will warm up to 29 to end the working week before rising into the 40s on Sunday. Port Augusta ahead of everyone else, warming up to 31 and 33 over the weekend before a scorching 41 degrees on Sunday. A little cooler in Kadina, 36 the max over there, over the next few days there. And lastly, in Port Pirie, temps will stay in the 30s, heading to just 31 on Saturday before climbing to 39 on Sunday. Clare will also stay cool, at least compared to our other centres, just 29 on Saturday. But Broken Hill certainly will join the 40-degree club, heading for 41 degrees on Sunday. So make sure the aircon and fans are up and running this weekend, Fraser.
Thank you, Abby. And that's all from the newsroom for now. Thanks for your company. I'll have updates later, but until then, enjoy the festive lights on display across Broken Hill. Good night.